Hello and welcome to Marketplace with Charles, brought to you by Art of Skincare, the company that brings out the beauty in you. I am Charles Ngobeni. On Marketplace, we aim to empower, encourage and equip you with the right tools needed to move closer to achieving your entrepreneurial dreams. Each week we'll bring you insight from experts in different fields of business, men and women of faith, and from ordinary people from all walks of life. On the previous episode, we unpacked what franchise is, and as promised today, we keep our focus on this business model. My guest is a managing executive of franchising and logistics at famous brands, Mr. Derrian Nadauld. On today's shows, we get down into the finer details of how one can become a franchise owner. Derrian, once more, welcome to Marketplace with Charles.
Thanks for having me back, Charles.
Franchising has been cited as one of the most attractive and lucrative business models to pursue if you seek a reasonable degree of guaranteed success in business. Although this guarantee I'm talking of is limited. Derrian, let us go back and look at how one can become a franchisee. We started this part last time. Can you repeat that part?
Yeah, Charles, I said the first step to probably take is to identify a franchise brand or franchise company that you'd
Yes.
possibly be interested in, obviously an industry that perhaps resonates with you, and to try and ensure that the opportunity or the company that you're getting involved with has got some kind of track record of success. So that would really be the starting point, and then each of those businesses would have a formal application process going through in terms of the initial checks and balances, be it things like profile of the franchisee relative to the brand or the business that they're looking to get involved in. There's obviously some financial checks and balances to make sure that the franchisee is in a financial position to take up any potential opportunities. So there's a formal application process, and then it goes into the second phase in terms of training and further investigating the suitability of that franchisee.
But I suppose there are various ways of getting into franchising, of which I believe one of them would be to approach the franchisor and find out if maybe there are no new stores which are looking for a franchise.
Yeah, that's correct, Charles. I mean, most franchise businesses would have a list of potential opportunities, both new from brand new existing outlets, as well as a list of existing franchisees who are potentially putting their businesses on the market. So once you've been through that initial screening and application process, you would be given access to those potential opportunities, depending obviously where you're looking.
So there's a huge competition.
There certainly
for a good brand.
certainly is a lot of competition here.
Yeah, but I suppose if I want to sneak through the back door, I can go and buy another franchise out.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously, I think, as I mentioned in the last episode, probably the more natural way for new franchisees, certainly in our business, to get into any one of the brands is to buy an existing store that's potentially on the market. Very often the new opportunities in any franchise business go to existing franchisees within the network, so it's often a little more challenging to get in on a new store opportunity, but not to say those don't happen. So, yeah, I mean, those are the two ways of getting in.
If I were to get a good spot, say, for instance, here there's a new mall coming up, and then I go and negotiate with the developer and lock a space, a prime spot on that mall. Wouldn't that serve as an advantage for me if I come to you and say, look, Derrian, I need to start operating a Wimpy or Dibonez in this new mall, and I've got a space already. Here's a lease agreement. What do you say about it?
Yeah, Charles, it's generally, in the new developments we've got a large network of landlords and developers that we work with and have built those relationships over a number of years. And generally we've got access to those landlords and opportunities long before we even kind of break ground. The leasing happens long in advance. So generally we're in the loop with those landlords and developers. So, and also we've got to keep in mind that there's existing franchisees for the most part in most areas. So we wouldn't necessarily, because someone's bought us a lease, just offer them the site and kind of ignore the guy who's been doing the hard yards in terms of building the brand in that particular area. It's a little more different when you're going out into rural South Africa where we possibly underrepresented, and there's a new greenfields opportunity. You perhaps got someone who's from the local area, understands the local market, and has got access to the retail space. That certainly does open up an opportunity to have a conversation with that potential investor.
I like it when you speak about the rural areas, which means you're giving us a guideline or an idea that if I need to move in and I need to move in quicker, I should also look into the rural area, because now we're talking about the black diamonds.
Yeah, Charles, look, I suppose the rural areas is probably a little archaic in terms of a term. I mean, retail in South Africa traditionally has been underrepresented in some of the far-flung corners of the world, of the country, but that's certainly changed over the last number of years. In terms of mall developments going up into township areas and more rural areas. So as much as the urban areas have become more saturated, developers and property owners are looking to opportunities far afield, not just necessarily in those big urban areas. So there are still opportunities out there, and often that's really where brands are trying to stretch their reach and presence.
Let's say, for instance, I aspire to be a Wimpy franchisee. I come to you and you give me an opportunity, and you accept me. I follow all the due costs. I pay is it the joining fee?
Joining fee?
Yes. What is expected of me?
So, Charles, once you've been through the formal approval and application process, you've, as you mentioned, there's a joining fee. Most brands or franchise company, that's really a fee to get the license to operate that brand. But that really is the starting point. I mean, there's a whole range of training interventions that would need to happen prior to the franchisee opening the outlet. If it's a brand new outlet, we train the franchisee and their core management team. There'll be full training provided for their teams that run the business. And then once you're in the business, that's really where the hard work starts. So the application and training process is really, as I say, just the first step in the process.
And what should the franchisee look out for to demonstrate that he's serious in this business?
Yeah, Charles, in our business, and I think particularly the food business, but I guess it cuts across any business that you're operating in today's economic kind of climate. If you're not committed fully to that business, you got to ask yourself, are you actually doing yourself justice, firstly, and your investment justice, but are you doing the brand justice? So I think what we'd expect from our franchisees, very much so, depending on the brand and what kind of time and energy is required to run those businesses, is we're looking for franchisees that are committed to put in the hours. You've got to be able to work with a team of people. I think that's first and foremost a skill that you need to have and be able to develop. All the other stuff in terms of in our business, the recipes, how you make up the products, we kit the stores out, all that kind of stuff, and that is expertise is provided to you. But what we can't provide, that we look to the franchisees to provide, is really that human capital in terms of making sure that they provide the sweat and the tears to make sure that team operates to a standard.
And you have to make your hands dirty.
Absolutely. There's certainly no shortcuts in our business, Charles.
In other words, you prefer an owner-run franchisee other than an absent franchisee.
Yeah, Charles, those are always the businesses that are more successful, be it a branded outlet, be it any independent business where the owner's got presence and the owner takes an interest in that business. The team are committed, or far more committed, certainly. And ultimately it translates into a much better customer experience and ultimately a better business at the end of the day. So certainly we wouldn't want to see franchisees coming into the business and kind of disappearing to the golf course in 6 months' time. We look to franchisees not necessarily to be chained to their stores 7 days a week, 365 days a year, but certainly be there when it matters, in the busy shifts, when customers are really in the store. That's what our business is built on over many, many years.
Oh, that's great. In fact, one man said, you can't climb the ladder of success with your hands in the pocket.
Exactly right.
In other words, if you need to climb the ladder of success, your hands must be out of your pocket. They must be doing something all the time. In other words, are you also saying the franchisee must look after their investment? It is their responsibility, not your responsibility. But I thought I invested money within you.
Yeah, Charles, as I said, I think in the last episode, franchising is really about being in business for yourself, but not by yourself. So as much as a franchisor like ourselves provide you with a business system, a brand that's got equity and a model that works, ultimately it's up to the franchisee to make sure that business is sustainable into the future. So, we provide the support, there's the marketing, there's the operational support, but at the end of the day, What we're looking to the franchisee to do is really to go and do the work behind the scenes in terms of making sure that business operates. So there's never any guarantee of success. I mean, as successful as some of the brands are that we've got in the South African landscape, there's always other factors that come into play that you can't necessarily plan for. And ultimately, it's up to that franchisee or investor to make sure that they're looking after that business.
No, I think you're quite correct, because something that I have observed, especially here in the country, is that you find one business in one street corner closing down. Few months later, someone else opened a similar business in the very same spot, selling exactly the same stuff at the same price. Sometimes they don't even change the name, and you find that business flying. Now you wonder, why is it that the other guy failed and this one, is he coming with black magic?
Yeah, often it's certainly no magic, Charles. It's more down to hard work than magic a lot of the time. So, I mean, we have lots of those examples too where, and franchisees go through life cycles. When you kind of get into the business, you're quite excited about it, you work hard, generally speaking, the business succeeds, and you go through a cycle, and ultimately you either kind of get tired and worn out and move on to something else, or you manage to reinvent yourself, as brands do, and take it to that next level. And often when we've had franchisees that perhaps are struggling over a period of time and they decide this is not necessarily what they want to do, we get some new guys, fresh blood, or some of our existing operators who have got a very strong track record of operating with us. You put a different jockey on the saddle, and all of a sudden it looks like a racehorse and not a cart horse.
I like that. Hard work will be my new magic. I think from here, I have to work very hard for my own success. Maybe for my kids' success as well, or to my grandchildren's success as well. I've never seen a grave for someone who died because of hard work. Hard work never kills. Maybe I should also say that birds of the air have been created to fly. Fish of the sea has been created to swim. But man is created for work. Work didn't come out of sin. When God created Adam and Eve, the first thing that He gave them work to do. Well, viewers, we'll take it further after the break. Do stay with us. Don't change that dial. Welcome back to Marketplace with me, Charles. Derrian, let's say here's a guy now is interested in franchising, is interested in a Wimpy outlet. You have given us a brief overview of where to start. Do you want to unpack that further?
Yeah, so I think we've dealt with the formal kind of application process, Charles, that they would go through. There'd be generally, whether it's Wimpy or any one of our other brands or some of our other franchisors in the marketplace, there'd be a formal application process. Obviously, the finance is an important part of that to make sure that the funding is in place. There's a balance between debt and owner's equity that goes into that business to make sure it's sustainable. And then through the formal process, once that's been done, there's obviously a training program that the potential franchisee would need to go through. And that really is aimed at equipping them on that specific brand or that specific business to make sure that they're equipped to run that business. So, in our instance, we go through a management program, or the franchisee would go through a management program from HR to labor relations to some of the legal requirements of running a business. Obviously the financial side, because not everyone's an accountant or financial expert, so there's some basic financial training around that. And then obviously the actual physical skills required to make the products and operate the store, be it the point of sale system or the makeup of the burgers or the breakfasts, or in the case of the pizza category, how to build those pizzas. So there's quite an intensive training program. There would be part of that is a classroom situation where they go through the theory, and the second part of that is actually going into one of our training stores to make sure that they get those physical skills. And a big part of the learning is really interfacing. They get the opportunity to interface with the franchisee who runs that training store, but also a broader network of franchisees who have been in the business for a long period of time, because that's often where these business systems evolve and develop, is through the operators. A brand might have a certain set of standards and a way of doing things, but a lot of the good ideas certainly come from the franchisees, and that helps build and develop that model over the period of time of that brand.
Do you assist in doing the business plan?
We certainly can. We've got standard templates, and we've also, if guys need some support from a financial point of view, we can put them in touch with people that can help them in that regard. That's very often where the stumbling block is, where guys don't necessarily understand how to crunch the numbers and put together a 5-year cash flow, as an example. We can certainly help them with that and put them in touch with people also who can assist them.
That sounds like a mammoth task.
Yeah, look, it's. Fortunately, we've developed our system over a period of time, Charles. So, we'd like to think it runs relatively well. We don't always get it right, as with any business. But I guess it comes with experience and having done it for a period of time.
If I'm a franchisee and I have got my own creative ideas, do you allow them?
Yeah, Charles, that's we certainly encourage franchisees to be innovative and creative. As we mentioned on the previous episode, obviously franchising, there are some limitations in terms of what you can and can't do. But I think that's important to make peace with as a franchisee when you're coming into any brand. But we have what we call franchise forums. We are representatives from our franchise network that we work with on a regular basis. When we're developing new menus, new products, new marketing strategies, etc., new ways of operating, as an example. And we like to look to those experienced operators within the network. As I said a little bit earlier, very often the good ideas and improvements within the system come from our franchise network. So we're certainly open to those kinds of ideas, but unfortunately the franchisee doesn't just have the freedom to go off and do his own marketing campaign without the necessary ratification.
I think that's fair enough. At least I don't have a liberty to do whatever I want within the franchise system, but at the same time, you are not killing my creative spirit, my innovative spirit within me, because that is in me.
Sure.
Once I'm completely restricted, you're just destroying me.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I think that's often the strength of the brand, Charles. We spoke sometimes about the negatives around association, if it's a negative kind of PR exercise or negative association. But I think the benefit of being part of an established brand, in the case of Wimpy with the sort of 500 restaurants out there, we've got, as a franchisor, got 500 operators to draw on and share that kind of experience. We certainly don't profess to have all the answers all the time. We've got lots of experienced people within our business, but as I said earlier, a lot of that kind of learning and sharing of best practice comes from the guys who run the businesses on a day-to-day basis. They're the guys interfacing with our customers every day. And even with our marketing teams, we encourage them to get out into store, interface with the franchisees who very often have those golden nuggets, kind of working the floor on a Saturday morning, seeing the way consumers interact with our staff, with our menu, with our in-store environment. So very often those learnings come from what's happening on site.
And do you perhaps have a franchise council? If so, how does it work? Or do you call it a franchise council? Yeah,
so we call it within Famous Brands the National Franchisee Forum. So each one of our brands has got a franchisee forum, which is a group of individuals or representatives from our franchise network that work together with the management team of each of those brands, as I said, to work on various aspects of the business, to get buy-in on certain projects and directions that the brand wants to take. So for us, that's a key part of running the business. As I said, we certainly don't have all the answers all the time. And it's a very key part of making sure that our, a sense check in terms of the decisions that we make.
How is it composed? Is it only the franchisee on that forum?
Yeah, so it's made up of a group of franchisees and then obviously representatives from our support office. So it would be the brand managing exec or the marketing exec, someone who heads up operations for that specific brand, the product manager, really the team that manages the brand on a day-to-day basis along with that group of franchisees.
That's a mouthful. I think we need to take a water break now.
Sure.
Viewers out there, I'm just thirsty. Not just thirsty for water, but thirsty for more information. Let's just take a break. Hopefully I'll also take a sip. Welcome back to Marketplace with Charles. I am sitting here with my guest, Mr. Derrian Nadauld. Derrian from Famous Brands. Mr. Famous Brand. I may as well call you that.
Certainly not Mr. Famous Brands.
As we wrap up this conversation, please tell us a little bit on the restrictions that you referred to earlier on, and we spoke about the limitations. Are they that bad?
Yeah, Charles, we certainly don't see them as a bad. As I said earlier, those restrictions are in place for a good reason, and that's to maintain brand standards, to standardize the customer experience, so that no matter where they are in the country, when they're visiting one of our brands, that they're getting a very similar experience, so they know what to expect, and that buys you customer equity. So yeah, from our perspective, certainly not a negative. I mean, there's restrictions in terms of the way we serve customers. There's a certain standard. I mean, every process within our business across our brands is standardized. So whether it's, if you as a franchisee want to do a marketing campaign, there's parameters within that specific brand that you can operate within. If it's a service standard, if it's an operational procedure, back of house as an example, all those parameters, I mean, that's really what you're buying into as a franchisee, that all those systems have been mapped out for you, and there's a certain standard operating practice or process that you need to follow. So those are really restrictions in our mind. They're certainly not negative, and it gives the franchisee some comfort in terms of knowing they can train his staff on those simple systems. They're easy to replicate, and that obviously lifts the standard over a period of time.
In fact, those restrictions are there for the good of the franchisee.
Correct.
Because, you see, if I were to put it the biblical way, I would say run your race in such a way that you may receive your crown. And if you run in such a way that you may receive your crown, that also tells me that you must stay within your lane.
Sure.
If you run in a race and move out of your lane, you'll be disqualified. So I believe those restrictions are there to protect the franchisee more than the franchisor, in fact.
Correct. Yeah, Charles, as I say, some folk might feel it is a bit restrictive in terms of restricting creativity and innovation and entrepreneurship, those kinds of things. But in our mind, it does. It solidifies the brand. It gives consumers a consistent experience. And as you say, I mean, by ensuring that each franchisee is operating within those standards, there's not a guy down the road that's obviously doing his own thing, which ultimately, if it turns negative, has a negative impact on your investment and your business as well. So that's why it's critically important as franchise owners, as brand owners, that we the guys that make sure and maintain that those standards are kept at a minimum, and they're maintained by all operators.
Do you want to take our viewers through the DoubleTalk? What is a DoubleTalk, and how does it help? And how can it help the franchisor, the franchisee, and the consumers out there.
Yeah. So, I mean, the DoubleTalk you talk about, Charles, is really our consumer line, which is an opportunity it's a platform for consumers to give us feedback, both positive and negative. And we have our fair share of both, I mean, as any operator would. It also gives our franchise partners an opportunity to log specific calls, be it compliments from us, our staff who service you from a logistics and supply chain point of view, but also to flag and highlight any product issues which you might have, which then gives us the opportunity to take it back in the supply chain to do the traceability checks, make sure that the product has not been widespread if there has been an issue. So yeah, it really is a feedback platform, as I say, for consumers as well as franchisees. So for us, it's a vital business tool.
And if there's a customer complaint, how do you handle that?
So we've got as I said, the customer call center is where that call will be logged either on email or telephone, whichever way the consumer chooses to log that. And then there's a number of business rules set up in that system. So it then would go out to the specific franchisee where that complaint or compliment came from. Our operational team are flagged, and depending on the level of the complaint, there's a hierarchy in terms of how that's escalated. And then there's a standard management process and how we deal with those customer queries and complaints to make sure that ultimately the customer is satisfied with the answer they've been given, and ideally we have them back in one of our stores soon.
I think what I like most about the DoubleTalk is that once there's a customer complaint or customer compliment, because it's not only there for complaints.
Sure.
It comes back to the franchisee. It is the franchisee who has a duty to go back to the customer and appreciate the comments or sort out the problems, not the franchisor. Because that keeps the franchisees in their toes. 100%. I mean, I wouldn't like anybody to go and complain and in my store and keep quiet about it. Then you log a call on DoubleTalk and it again comes back to me. I still have to humble myself and go back to the same customer and say, I apologize.
Yeah, quite right, Charles. I mean, our business across our brands is really we deal with customers on a day-to-day basis, and just by definition, you're never going to get them all right. Unfortunately, as hard as we try, you do sometimes drop a catch or drop a ball. But I think every one of those drop catches is an opportunity to make a customer for life. So I guess it's an old cliche, but there's no point sticking your head in the sand and hoping they're going to go away and come back tomorrow all happy. You've got to kind of take it on the chin sometimes and acknowledge where we've gone wrong. And use that as an opportunity, either to retrain staff or check your procedures back of house if it's been a product complaint. In our view, every one of those customer touch points is an opportunity to improve.
No, it is indeed an opportunity. It can be a setback. I'll love the customers who complain if something is wrong, other than the customers who vote with their feet out and go somewhere else.
Sure. Yeah, I think that it's a very real risk in today's day and age, Charles, where competition is rife. I mean, consumers are more and more educated about what it is they're looking for from a product perspective, from a customer experience point of view. And to be frank, they don't actually need to waste their time giving us the feedback if they've had a poor experience. And sadly, more often than not, they don't even give us that feedback, and that they would walk out and kind of find themselves at a competitor's door. So our view, and we try and do that with our team, is that if they pick up on any niggle or issue with the consumers, that they encourage them to give us that feedback. So again, it's an opportunity to win that customer back, as opposed to them not saying anything and just disappearing from our doors forever.
I think there's so much that we can discuss, but unfortunately, our time is limited. If they need more information, if they need to know more about Famous Brands, where do they go?
Charles, probably the easiest way is to go to our website, just famousbrands.co.za, and follow the links in terms of whether it's a new store inquiry or existing stores. It's a fairly simple process to go to get the right information there.
Thank you, Mr. Nadauld, for joining me on Marketplace with Charles. It has been great having you.
Thanks for having me, Charles.
Viewers out there, I believe you have learned a lot today from my expert, my guest, Mr. Derrian Nadauld of Famous Brands. It has been my pleasure having you in your sitting room, in your bedroom, wherever you have been watching this from. Get in touch with me. I need to hear from you on charlesngobeni.com, or you can follow me on Instagram, Charles_Ngobeni, or you may like me on Facebook, Charles Ngobeni. There, I'll be able to motivate you on a daily basis. Stay blessed. See you next time. Same place, same channel.